Hey everyone, it's baze.djunkiii transmitting from Hamburg, Germany, back with a new video, and well, back with a new vinyl talk video because I decided to shoot more of these because apart from the unboxing thing, I want these to be more of a focus of this channel, so there might be more coming as soon as I find the time of that. But before I start into this one, I want to send a massive shout out to Ivan Jansen of the Belgian Erzählt label, which is an underground label for like hardcore, wonky techno, breakcore and all that kind of thing, because he sent me a massive package which I haven't unboxed for reasons, and what was also in there, and I'm highly appreciative of this, was this t-shirt and a hoodie which came from the former Australian hardcore and breakcore label that is Bloody Fist. Very infamous label, very iconic, has been playing a big role in the Australian hardcore scene and stuff, and breakcore scene and dark drum and bass scene. And those merchandise items like t-shirts and hoodies are, well, out of stock, not to find anymore. And I met Ivan briefly in February when I was going to Erzählt for a Chains party at that like big discotheque thing, like a hard techno party, and I saw he was wearing one, and I asked him like where he got this from, and then he offered to send me stuff, just to send me stuff and support the thing I do. And those are like super expensive and not to find anymore. So I'm extremely grateful and appreciative of that. So I will like treasure those. And I had like a Bloody Fist hoodie in the past, and I wore this until it fell apart like for years on end. So like a super thanks to Ivan. And now let's go into the real like topic of this video, which is a record I want to talk about, which came to me from the vaults of Sascha Mueller, because as you know, I'm taking over, or as you might know maybe from my Instagram or something like that, I'm taking over part of his record collection, because he was a DJ in the past and has played a lot and has amassed a lot of records, and he wanna like scale down on that. So I'm like inheriting quite a bunch of records, and the interesting part is about that is that you always think you know a lot about electronic music and club music and stuff until you find out there is a whole chapter of music you have no clue about that it existed. And for me, that's especially the part that is like what's called progressive house, trance, and like hard trance maybe, from the like 97, 98 era onwards, because I was a raver, a teenage raver, and I followed all that kind of stuff until, well, I followed this longer, but the main thing when I was going to the Love Parades and stuff like 94, 95, trance and all that kind of stuff was really prevalent on dance floors and an important part of the early growth of the movement. But then came a phase of music that was called Dream Dance, you know, BBE, 7 Days in 1 Week, all that kind of like Robert Miles, Children, all that kind of stuff, which was going way too commercial for me. And I had discovered jungle and drum and bass and hardcore and breakcore in that era. And so I followed, as also when I started to work in the record store back in late 98, we didn't have like any trance or rave or something like that in the store, but we were focusing more on the harder experimental, also for me, drum and bass side of things. So I wasn't following the whole trance progressive whatever movement at all from like, let's say 98 onwards, because I was focused on a different thing. Interesting thing is that Sascha as a DJ played that kind of stuff, and there's a whole world that happened in those years that I didn't even realize that happened. And this is one of those records actually. This is e-pac featuring Jean Beauvoir, Use Your Imagination, on Pace Records, or Pace, I think Pace. And the missing O in your is not a mistake from my side. Probably you can see this proper with the handwriting on there. But this is actually written like that on the record. So I don't know where this comes from. Thing is, e-pac is an Italian producer The vocalist, Jean Beauvoir, is obviously, or not really obviously, but according to Discogs, is from Chicago. And I know that this has been going on in the Italian music scene from the Italo disco days onwards, that there is a lot of like free interpretation when it comes to like English spelling within the Italian music scene. So I don't know if this was just a thing that they did on purpose, or if it's just a spelling error. And interestingly, this even comes with a, I don't know, you might never have seen this if you're not a DJ. So when you got DJ promos back in the days, you always had like a feedback sheet or an info sheet. And this was promoted obviously by a company that was called Murden Music. And they were like providing a bit of information over there. And yeah, those are defunct, so don't mail them or call them. And they were like telling people, the DJs, to vote for that kind of record, to push that into the so-called dance charts or DJ charts or whatever, so which were important back then. So this is an interesting kind of music history thing. I never heard of Murden Music as a promotion agency, never got records from them, but Sascha obviously did. And yeah, what this is. On the A side, we got Use Your Imagination, the Avantgarde remix. So I haven't heard the original one of this, but what I know is that this is a massive hit record. Released in 2002, the Pace Records label was obviously a sub-label of Exit Records, which is spelled X-IT, all in caps. German label focused on trance and hard trance from Cologne, defunct now, has been defunct for ages, and the Pace Records label was probably a sub-label offshoot. And yeah, the Avantgarde remix is what you would have been calling progressive house, basically in the late 90s, even though this is like 2002. And think this is a rolling anthemic track, basically using one like very intense emotional vocal line over and over again, a little bit jumpy in the bass, so faster and less organic than the usual house music if you think of labels like Nervous Records or Strictly. And it has this very interesting synth line, which is like the main motive, which takes me back in some form to tracks like Insomnia by Faithless. And if you think about that, if you know that track, you definitely know what I'm talking about, with that anthemic synth stab hook that is repeating all over again. And this is definitely one that is not really similar, but in the same vein on the A side with the Avantgarde remix. And if I remember correctly, it's also on there. There are some distorted guitars in there somewhere. And the B side, the Mark van Linden and D-Goa remix, is similarly anthemic. So you have the vocals, the super recognizable vocals, which are not Get Your Imagination, Use Your Imagination for some reason, looped all over again, but the overall thing is even a little bit more jumpy, I think a little bit faster and more like uplifting. There was like a sub genre of trance that was called Hands Up back in the days. I don't know if it still exists, but this is more leaning towards this direction, and it's a little bit more commercial, a little bit more cheesy, but yeah. This is a record I had no idea this existed. Has even this kind of number on there, which Sascha told me he used when he started out in an attempt to kind of categorize his records and to keep count of what he has, but like abandoned this approach like a while ago. And yeah, this is a record I never had an idea existed, because in 2002 I was deeply into like Gabba hardcore, drum and bass and breakcore and a little bit of like UK garage. But I found this and I find this quite fascinating, and what this is for sure is a hit. So I know a hit record when I listen to this. I don't know how much they pressed back in the day. On Discogs there are 85 people who have this, and I guess 14 or 15 who want this, but there are a few copies on sale, I guess. And well, I don't know, this style wasn't that popular in the like underground club scene anymore at that time, because minimal techno was on the rise as well. And I don't know, if you manage to see this or grab this on Discogs for a like cheap buck, highly recommended to do so, because a hit is a hit is a hit. And right now, at this day and age, I guess we see such a revival of a revival of a revival that this kind of music will come back in the future. So yeah, e-pac featuring Jean Bourvois, Italian producer, on a German label. Sounds very 90s, of course, but is early 2000s, and probably a quick addition if you're a DJ to your collection that might uplift your set when that kind of music comes back. And I always loved this kind of rolling, bumpy, bouncy sound, especially when there is an anthemic vocal line. And in the UK there was a style back in the day that was called hardback house, which was a little harder version of handbag house, and this is also touching down on this, or touching on this kind of stuff. So this is not really trancey, even though the B-side has some like uplifting elements, but this is definitely one that is energetic and hands up, and also corresponds with an audience that is not that deeply entrenched in super underground sounds. So normal people, I guess, if they're in clubbing mode, in nightclub mode, will react to this pretty well. So that's a thing, a record I didn't know about until like a few weeks ago, until I listened to this. Now a Vinyl Talk video about that for a reason. Good stuff, even though commercial, even though not really down my or up my alley in that kind of era, like early 2000s, but still a major discovery. And once again, props to Sascha as well for like letting me take over and take care of the remainders of his record collection for a reason. So big up, mate. I'm out into editing mode. See you in the next one.